a quorum. So let's begin. And I think with a virtual meeting, trying to do introductions always takes a long time. Like we'll maybe skip them this meeting. Let's start off with our action items 2A, which is the minutes from the March 17th meeting. Hopefully you've had a chance to review the minutes, and if so, we'd entertain a motion at this time to approve those minutes.
This is Brad. I'll make the motion to approve.
You go first.
This is Jackie Miles. I'll second.
Do we get a second?
Salzwell, I'll second.
Jim seconds.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Motion is carried. We'll move on to item number 2B, which is a procurement manual update. Mary.
Yes, good morning. We have made some changes to the MAT bus procurement manual as the Minnesota had made some changes. And effective January 1st of 2021, the state of Minnesota changed their procurement policy to align with the federal guidelines. And these changes included raising the micro purchase threshold to $10,000 or less. It used to be $3,500. And the small purchases threshold is now $10,001 to $250,000. It was $3,500 to $150,000. This takes and lines up with what the federal guidelines are. And in 2018, MatBus approved the updates to the procurement policy, which pulled together the requirements from Fargo, Moorhead, North Dakota, and Minnesota. So when we take and make decisions on what procurement we use the most restrictive of all of the policies, depending on what funding source we have. So what we're looking at is a request for a MAT coordinating board to recommend the revised transit procurement policies to the Fargo City Commission and the Moorhead City Council.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions for Mary? Hearing no questions or discussion, the recommended motion is on the bottom of Mary's memo. Anybody like to make a motion at this time?
Mr. Chairman, this is John Strand. I make the recommended motion.
John has a first.
This is Brad. I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion is carried. All right, we will move on to item 2C, which is the preliminary 2021 operating budgets. First up is Fargo. Julie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We in Fargo are fast approaching the budget process to have everything entered into the system by May 3rd, not to say we can't make adjustments to that. It's a little earlier than we're used to in the year, but I just thought I'd give you a quick overview of what we're proposing for some of the changes. With a couple things in mind that I encapsulated here in the memo. I don't know if you all recall, but we did take on the 6 dispatchers from our contractor this year, starting in January 2021, and that has been going very well. It's made a big improvement in our operation flow and the interactions with the drivers. It just overall has made a great difference. So we're very pleased with that as we move forward. One of the things that I did want to point out is we have only added 4 positions or FTEs in the last 13 years to our staff. So one of the requests is that we at least reclassify or restructure our department and try and make better use of the staff that we do have. There is one request for an additional person, but that would be someone that we would bring on as a part-timer to start with. It's to help with covering all the vacations and any time offs, anything we've got going on in the dispatch area. So going on to break it down a little bit further, we have it in our system. We break it down by different departments. So account 2561 summary is the Fargo fixed route and administration. And what we're proposing there, it's a 3.8% overall increase, with the main 2 big things that would be increasing would be the driver services. We're under contract for that. It's a 4.2% increase with that contract. And then security services, we would update those security services. West Acres has asked us to have full-time security for any hours we're working out there. So that's why we have this security ask in this piece of the puzzle here. Going on to 2562, that's paratransit budget. We share that with Moorhead on a percentage basis. And what we're asking, the main thing we're asking for there again is under driver services. So these would be our paratransit drivers. And that again is under contract with First Transit, and there's a 4.2% increase in that particular contract. Account 2563 is the GTC, Ground Transportation Center. And we've got a couple increases there that are a little bit bigger. First one, security services. We had an incident. I'm not sure if all of you are aware of it. We found a loaded handgun in one of the men's restroom stalls. And things have just been deteriorating as far as security there goes. So we did go to the Fargo Finance Committee to get relief and add some dollars to our security budget. So now we have security services there from 2 p.m. go on until 11:15, and then they come sporadically throughout the day prior to 2 p.m. And that's to help with unfortunately some of the rougher clientele that we see go through there. So that's one increase you'll see there. And the other one is to get this part-time seasonal no benefited individual to assist with the dispatch functions down there. And moving on to 2564, which is Fargo planning. And we do not share this category with Moorhead, but it's for a slight reduction. It's $12,000 down from $12,100. We don't forecast we're going to need any more than that this year. There's no big studies coming up that we need to worry about. 2568 is mobility management. We share 1/3, 2/3 with Moorhead. And this would be another reduction of $3,000. We're basing that on actuals that we look at over the trends over the past couple of years. So we feel comfortable that we can take that down a little bit and not have too many issues. And the last one is 2569. Jordan, do you want to cover that piece? That's kind of your purview.
Sure. Yep, I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, 2569 is the Metro Transit garage accounts that are cost shared with the city of Moorhead. Quick rundown, one of the bigger items, that part-time seasonal no benefits. We've had issues with recruiting and hiring, especially technicians. So the plan there was to increase that part-time seasonal non-benefited position to possibly do a couple internships at a time. Have maybe 2 to 3 interns here at any given time, so that when we have openings, if we feel like one of those interns is a good fit for us, we can move them into full-time position. That just helps with recruiting and retention of employees, being that we're kind of struggling there. Computer services, we have some increases for our GenFair, our new farebox system, software licensing, and also our new faster web software licensing. So that's one there to increase, and a lot of the other ones are fairly small. Other than gasoline, we have added a couple tap ride services over the past couple of years, and that account has never been increased for those changes since those tap ride vehicles are cutaways that use gasoline. So those are the major ones there, for an increase of about $100,000 for the year.
Okay. Thank you, Jordan. The last piece is the capital request that we've got in place for 2022. There is the West Acres shelter, which West Acres has for the last few years asked us to build. We can be on their site, but just they would like us removed from the main body of the actual mall itself. So we're working with them on that. There's some miscellaneous support equipment that we put in there, and then we do have some bus replacements coming up. So the 5 large buses is $2.3 million, and the 3 paratransit buses are $204,000. That's the federal share, and you'll see the local share in the columns there. Our expectation is, of course, not that we will get everything, but we did outline what our I almost want to say wish list, but needs are. So that's the capital piece. And on the last page there, you'll see a capital piece that is a forecast out for 5 years. And that's working in conjunction with Moorhead to get shared costs into that program. So that's all I have. And thank you, Jordan, for helping with that for the budget. And there is a requested motion, Mr. Chairman. So.
All right, questions for Julie?
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
John Strand here. Julie, how did the fare free trial run go? And was it in a financial sense a really impact to the program, or is there hope in there that maybe someday we could look at that model and make it a permanent one?
Well, there were a few things that happened that we weren't expecting to happen. Our ridership, of course, fell, even though the fares were free. And obviously that's due to the pandemic. People just were not getting out and about. A lot of them very much appreciated the no fares, so it was one less thing they had to worry about for cost. As far as revenues that were lost, on the Fargo side, it was about $800,000. And the CARES money that was distributed by the feds, that is what helped make up that difference. So I think what we'd have to look at is, do we have the ability to cover operating costs and not have any revenue coming in through the fare boxes or through past purchases? We did tend to run into a few more characters on the bus. Bad actors, as I think the police are calling them nowadays, because anybody could get on, go anywhere, and it was not a cost to any of them. So some of them used it just to bounce around the city and do whatever they needed to do. So, but I don't want to discount it completely in the future. I'd like to leave that door open for us, Commissioner. So. I think there were some real positives that came out of it. People really very much appreciated it. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Julie, in your memo, you mentioned the getting good candidates. And I know that's been a problem kind of statewide a little bit as far as drawing good candidates. And any analysis of that initially as far as the hourly wage and benefits necessary to draw good attendance? I know you mentioned in here that there was potential for a pay review, but where's kind of that at?
Well, that focus is really mostly on the folks in the maintenance area. And I think, Jordan, if you want to explain that compression issue and what we're doing with the technicians, I think that would be beneficial.
Yeah, so over the past year, both Central Garage and Transit have had multiple openings for equipment technicians for out in the shops. And what we're finding is that where the city has our technicians classified is a little low compared to what our competition is, which is mainly the private sector repair shops and dealerships. So the last 3 employees that the city has hired for that position, we've had to start them at a higher step in the grade than what we normally would. And in all cases, we've had to get assistance from the PEC, Personnel Evaluation Committee, to start them at a higher pay than what we normally would. So we're seeing that we're having to, basically buy people in order to get them to come here. Even with the added benefits and everything that working with the city, the dollar amount seems to really get people. So we did request a reclassification for the technician position to kind of bring it in line with what we're finding with current job postings and then current information we're getting from candidates that are applying for our technician jobs. So with that reclassification, it also moves our middle tier technicians really close to our supervisor technicians, which causes, like Julie said, compression issues. So we've also asked for reclassification for our supervisor technicians to kind of widen that gap again, so that those 2 positions aren't right up next to each other as far as pay goes, just because they are supervisors and there should be a little bit of a gap there. So that's kind of been our struggles as far as hiring people and kind of what the city is looking at doing. We don't think that pay is the ultimate thing that we have to increase in order to attract people. I think, like I said earlier, I think we can focus more on an internship program that offers training. We can have those people here working hands-on and getting that on-the-job training. And even if it happens where we don't hire them immediately out of school, they still have gone through our program, so to say, and they could go work somewhere else and maybe come back to us in a couple of years with even more experience. So it's just an opportunity, I think, for us to just look at things a little differently and have a program where people can come in and learn what we're all about and possibly stay with us or come back later. So,
thank you. Other questions?
Sure, this is Steve Lindos. I have a question for Jordan just to follow up. So Jordan, the internship program sounds fantastic, and partnering with the different tech schools sounds really great. Are there other opportunities, perhaps? I guess one of the questions is, what is the kind of turnover that we have in the entry-level positions?
It hasn't been, our turnover hasn't been that bad. I think in the 4 years that I've been here, I've only had to replace, there's only been 1 technician that's left that we've had to replace. I know Central Garage has had a couple other positions that have left. I think they've hired, 3 or 4 people in the last 2 years. So, what was the first part of your question, Steve? Sorry.
Oh, the turnover was the first part. In terms of
Yep.
Partnering with the tech schools or other entities to try to get people in as internships is fantastic. The other question would be, have you explored, there's sort of the pay increase, but you can also do loan forgiveness or, kind of scholarships to try to entice people, a scholarship with the expectation that you're getting hired, or loan forgiveness after you've worked for 6 months.
Sure. Yep. And we have had some of those discussions with HR. about other options that we can do, because I think there's a lot of things out there that we can do that to kind of attract people and make it attractive for them to come work for us. Loan forgiveness was one of them that we had talked about. And then like the internship program and like paying for their school as they're an intern was another one. I think HR's concern with something like that was we might not always have a position available for them when they're out of school, because we can't just add people as we want to. That has to go through a whole process and stuff like that. So there's a few challenges. Before coming here, I worked for Butler, and they have a very good internship program where they put people through a Caterpillar program at school, and then they hire them on when they're done with school. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability just to hire people at will, if we want to keep them with us. So there are, like I said, some challenges, but like I said, I think there are options to think outside the box and just kind of do things differently than what we've done in the past, to try and help with that recruitment and retention of good employees. So. Thank you, Steve.
Julie, you mentioned security and that you're adding some positions in that area. With this budget, do you feel that are we at the minimum of what you think you need for security, midpoint? Are you comfortable with this budget recommendation that you're as far as security personnel in here?
I would say that we're at a comfortable place if we're able to add this amount of security. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, there is a recommended motion at the bottom of Julie's memo. As I understand your motion, Julie, it would be somewhat contingent on capital just because you're not sure exactly what we would potentially get awarded, so that could potentially change slightly, and that's kind of the caveat of that motion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, yes.
Now, this is Steve Linda, so I'll move the motion, which is to direct staff to move forward with operating budgets, right? Grant applications.
Okay, we have a first.
This is Arlette Preston. I'll second.
We have a second. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Julie. We'll move on to Moorhead, Lori.
Thank you. So Moorhead is just starting our budget process for 2022. The state of Minnesota is a huge funder of transit in Minnesota, and the grant application process has been moved up a little bit on the Minnesota side. So grant applications opened on May 10th and are due on June 30th. So we are working towards that grant cycle. So we get 80% of our operating costs covered by the state of Minnesota for our fixed route, and 85% of our paratransit and senior ride services covered by the state grant process. We do still have CARES Act and rescue plan money from the COVID-19 issues, so those are being applied to our local share, and so there will be no local share request for 2022. The state has put a cap on our increases for the 2022 budget at 2%, and they've also made it only a one-year grant instead of a two-year grant this year. However, they have left the option open that they could, with a 60-day notice, make it a two-year grant instead of a one-year grant, and then 2023 would also be a 2% increase cap. You can go beyond that cap if you have a good case that you can make, like existing contracts that are already in place, things like that, new staffing and such. So there is a case for making that as well. Most of a large portion of Moorhead's 2022 operating budget is through our master agreement with the city of Fargo and passed through to us. So we received the Fargo draft budget on May 3rd, and we'll be reviewing that with the city manager and seeing, what our portions would be and incorporating that in and seeing if we can cover those amounts in our budget with our 2% cap that we have been given. Our other cost is staffing, and we also have a staffing issue that we feel needs to be addressed, and we'll be bringing that to the city manager for discussion purposes. Part of it is that we do have these new federal grants that require reporting. We also have the new transit authority moving forward, and the designation as a large urban, which increases our reporting in fiscal year 23, which is October of 2022. So there are some additional staffing needs that we're going to approach. Our part-time accountant, Mary Fromm, is retiring at the end of June, and so one of the proposals I've put forward is to increase that from a part-time position to a full-time position to handle the additional grants and grant reporting. Our first transit contract is the second year of a 2-year contract. As Julie mentioned, I looked at that and it looks like a 4.6% increase in driver services and a 3.8% increase in management services. Moorhead and Fargo did take over some of the bonuses that First Transit had in their cost proposals, instead of including those, leaving it to our discretion for like new hiring bonuses and such if we feel that we need to draw in drivers. And so there may be some increases coming in that respect, depending on how hiring goes for drivers. But I know that they're looking at hiring 10 drivers before school starts back up in August right now, and have asked us to look at some incentive bonuses for that. Shelter cleaning has a 1.8% increase in the contract, and snow removal contract is in its 4th year as well, but it does no price increase for the snow removal contract. So basically, I have no budget numbers to present to you yet, as we're still working on that. But I wanted to make you aware of the issues that we have, which are fairly minor. It's just a staffing issue and whether the city manager would consider that. We do have CARES Act money and rescue plan money that can help pay for that staffing increase and help us through that period of time where we have no local share match, and would be a good pilot program to see how that staffing works out. So that's it. The recommended motion is that staff will move forward with operating budgets and grant applications in coordination with the Moorhead City Manager and based on the considerations listed here, and bring back a final budget in July of 2021 so that you can see our final budget.
Questions for Lori?
Laura, this is Steve Lundas. Do you anticipate any problems with, you're getting the first transit contract is more than 2% and you're constrained with a 2% kind of increase? Do you anticipate that?
We were under budget in 21, and they used the 21. So far, we're under budget for 21. So I don't know yet, but it's based on 21's budget. So with the 2% on top of what we have not all spent, we might be okay with that. But if we're not, we can ask for more than the 2% based on an existing contract. So that should help us with that issue.
Okay, so for the short term, fine. Maybe longer term, we might be looking at an issue.
Yes, and we can use the CARES Act money to pay for any increases that the state does not cover. A lot of times with the state of Minnesota, if it's something new, like a new position or a new service level, they like it that we go and pay for it under a pilot program. They can see if it's successful, and then the next year they often will increase and take that on as a state-funded project.
Good. Thank you.
Laura, you mentioned the CARES Act. Is that something that you're still going through, trying to disseminate all the potentials in that package? Is it relatively complex, trying to kind of get through it all, or are you kind of done going through it, or you still think there's more to be discovered yet?
The CARES Act money, most of the money is operating money, and 100% of the cost of transit is eligible for CARES Act. And And now we have the new rescue plan funds as well. So we already have an existing grant in place for the CARES Act money, and we feel that using that as a local share match to the state money, that those funds would last 4 or 5 years. So that's a good place to be in. And then the rescue plan money that Moorhead was allocated is nearly $900,000. And so we'll be putting a grant application in for that and talking to the city manager and how those funds will be best utilized in the budget. So I feel confident that for the next 5 to 7 years, we have a good amount of funding for transit and opportunities to implement our transit development plan and start some pilot programs and things.
Thank you. Other questions for Lori? Okay, hearing no other questions, there is a recommended motion that Lori has at the bottom of her memo. Entertain at this time.
This is Steve Lindell. So move that we direct staff to move forward with the operating budgets and grant applications for 2022 in coordination with the Moorhead City Manager based on the considerations listed, and bring back a final 2022 budget at the regularly scheduled July meeting.
Okay, we have a first, a second.
This is Annie. I will second.
All right, we have a second by Annie. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion is carried. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 3, which is our informational items. First up is item 3A, update on the GTC construction. Julie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As most of you are aware, we did complete our interior renovation last year and finalized everything pretty much right at the end of the year in 2021. And for those of you that haven't seen it, I certainly invite you to come over and see it. You won't recognize it. We have more lobby space. We have much more access to restrooms. Our dispatch area is much bigger, and we put in some amenities for our customers. So we put in lobby seating with USB ports so they can charge things up. Jefferson has its own space over on the north side of the lobby. And so it's a nice multimodal setup that we've got. So we're moving forward. In fact, bids are due today at 11:30 to do the exterior of the building. And the budget for that part of it is it's a combination of grants, it's CARES grant, and then a state grant from North Dakota State, and then part of a leftover North Dakota State grant. The budget is $2.264 million on that. We've had our pre-bid meeting, of course, and it sounds like some of the costs for steel and lumber and insulation are going to increase possibly significantly. We'll find out today, but we will obviously work within the budget, and if there's things we can't get done with this round, then that stuff we can't get done. But one of the main things that we would hope to accomplish with this is to replace the canopy system. Part of it is going to be left in place as far as kind of what we call the footprint of it, but we're replacing the overhang piece to eliminate some of the issues we've had with lighting. So we'll replace the lighting to be LED and give us much better visibility out there. But we're also putting a piece on the underneath to prevent the birds from nesting up there and causing additional issues with wherever birds are. You know how that goes. But we want to make sure that we get pedestrian areas done. We're doing things with the concrete to designate spots. We're doing things with the painting on the concrete. So we're increasing safety for our customers there as well. And those are the main pieces I want to make sure get done. And then there's a few deck repairs left. One of them is a tendon that popped on us right towards the end of last year, and it was not a timing during the year. It was winter, so we couldn't repair it at that time. But we are going to take care of that with this exterior part of the project. So we'll finish up the deck repairs with it. But happy to answer any questions. It's quite the project, and we're very excited to be moving forward with the exterior of it.
Any questions for Julie? Julie, I know with COVID, we really didn't get maybe some of the open houses type of thing you'd like to have had to really show it off. Are you still planning on doing some of those things towards the, this fall potentially, or?
Yes, we are. We're hoping to hit it. We are hosting the Dakota Transit Conference here in Fargo this coming September. And we're hoping to have a substantially complete exteriors that we can bring everybody down there. And I think our open houses would be around that time frame. So yeah, we're excited to show it off. It's going to look beautiful.
Sounds good. All right, we'll move on to item 3B, which is an update on the COVID-19 changes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick update, and I know that there are a lot of conflicting mask mandates and such out there. I know they've expired for the city of Fargo, city of Moorhead, city of West Fargo. Everybody is on board with there being no mask mandate. Unfortunately, the TSA, the CDC, decided to extend the executive order from President Biden, which puts us requiring masks up until September 13th of this year. We're hoping maybe they'll change that and shorten that time period, but in the meantime, we'll of course follow that because it's considered a public conveyance, and masks are required on all public conveyances. So we'll continue to require masks on the transit system in case you get any questions.
Any questions on that? Okay, thank you.
Actually, Julie Steeland asked, just how has the reception to requirement for the mask mandate been handled? I mean, has it been I guess we're entering an unforeseen time now where the masking isn't uniform.
Yes, what we've seen is, for the most part, people are very cooperative. And what we've done is purchased a bunch of the disposable masks. So we make them available on the buses at the GTC, any location where we've got a facility set up. So people are pretty good about it. And our drivers are, of course, required to wear them. I'm not too sure about the upcoming change with continuing it. I think we'll meet with a little more resistance, but I think we've had a few incidents with it, but for the most part, I'd say it's gone very well.
Okay, I'm just kind of cognizant that there's a lot of signs that now are out of date, and that people might think, oh, this is just an old sign, and if there's some way to I don't know, make the sign, say to this date or something, just to avoid people saying and having arguments about, no, I think that's an old sign, I'm going to ignore it.
Yes, that's actually a very good point. And we, Tara and I know and Cole have been working on social media, so we are getting all of that updated, and we will put dates on there, because you're exactly right, it will cause confusion for people, and it's going to cause confusion with us being truly probably the only part of what's left for people with needing masks. So people are going to have a little bit more consternation when they see that, but we'll follow the guidelines and definitely put dates on everything.
Well, I think the airport and Amtrak also have to wear masks.
Yes.
So you can see
right.
bus like the airport.
Yeah, there you go.
That's great. The social media is a great idea. Good.
Yeah, we've got a couple of real good people that we've got on staff that are taking care of that for us.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to item 3C, the update on the farebox system implementation and pilot program. Lori.
Well, we're excited. We're moving forward quickly now with our farebox update. As you know, it's been a couple of years since we purchased the equipment, installed the equipment, and now are getting ready to implement our new fast fare system, which has account-based ticketing and mobile ticketing and such. So when we started collecting fares again April 1st, our fare boxes started to be used again, and we had to retrain our drivers on the existing fare media and system. And now we'll begin training staff May 24th and 25th next week on the new account-based system. So our customer care center staff still will be able to accept cash and credit cards and load cards at the ground transportation center. But for those people who have computers or smartphones, they will be able to create account and load their smart cards themselves with funds and also get the best fare. And I know we've talked in the past when we bought the fare box update about best fare, but basically, for those who are new to this, someone puts money on their smart card, and then as they use it, it takes off the $1.50 cash fare. And as they get up to $5, then they get unlimited rides for the day, because that's the cost of the day pass. As they continue to use it, it gets to be up to $40, which is the 30-day unlimited ride pass, and then they get the best deal, and they stop being charged for rides until those 30 days have expired. So it's a good way to go, and you can also buy your tickets on your phone as a mobile ticket and flash it to the farebox reader as well. So there are more options available. There's going to be a pilot program where we're asking for up to 20 passengers to test the system for us, buy the passes, use them, and check it out. So we are looking for volunteers for that. And our tentative date for going live is June 28th, for when we will be implementing all of our point of sale and things like that. So people can still use their old media, and those who aren't comfortable with the changes can still do what they're doing. I think we'll just be transitioning people over, slowly. And as they see other people using it, they'll want to get into the new technology. We'll have a big marketing campaign coming up to inform people of all the changes and give them an opportunity to switch from the old media into the new account-based system. So we will still have an existing fare media that we will sell. And as we see what people prefer, we may continue to keep some of those fare medias around. For example, for an agency that works with us, they may want to buy 20 single ride tickets and give them out one at a time to customers. So we will probably continue some of those fare medias. And then we have also to decide where we want to put a retail point of sale. In Fargo and in Moorhead, we each have a retail point of sale system that we can implement with this system. So it could be at an agency, it could be at a grocery store, whatever we can find, and people want to work with us in partnership for that. So we're excited. It's coming. It's going to be here soon. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Lori?
Lori, this is Steve Lindos. I have two questions probably. One is the new fare card system. Does it have the ability to collect information on the rider so that you could actually track, sort of individuals, so college students or, population groups? That's
a good question, Steve. I know that, with our fare collection, we have bus stop names so that when a fare is collected, you can see where people are getting on, and you can associate that with the payment type. And I believe the new account base has some of that, but I think the customer can turn it off if they don't want people to know where they're getting on and off. But we're still going through training next week, so we're not quite sure of all of the capabilities of the system.
Okay.
Unless Jordan knows.
Jordan.
No, I thought maybe Jordan, Jordan and I are working on this together, that he might know that answer, but he shook his head no.
Yeah. So the other thing is I like the well, I haven't seen the actual new systems, but I like the concept, and having used similar systems in other cities where you essentially have like a plastic credit card that is you keep adding to, and then you have a throwaway paper card for the single use kind of stuff. This is totally an out there question, but I have like transit cards from like 5 or 6 cities that I keep at home and try to bring to there to reload and to use. And I've always wondered why I can't have just one like master pass that would work on all the systems. Is that actually possible, or is there's things that are just...
Well, I think with revenue, it's hard to be moving throughout communities, but I know that there's a big movement to be able to use your card for various modes of transportation, to be able to use it for a bike share and use it for the scooters and use it for parking and have multiple uses within a community. But passing between communities is a little bit more difficult. Because you have to have a credit card, and you have to, and there's credit card fees charged for the use, and so there's a whole trail of accounting that's fairly complicated in the background of the system.
I know the toll road systems finally got together, and there's like only 2 or 3 systems now in the U.S. But yeah, I imagine it took them a while to get those together. So you're right. It's a counting problem.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Lori? All right, we'll move on to item 3D, update on the transit development plan. Michael.
Well, good morning, everybody. As you all know, we're in the midst of updating the transit development plan, which is the 5-year plan that kind of covers the network, the transit network in our region. We are at the point of the project where we are about done developing the recommendations for the transit system, and staff, in fact, just met yesterday to kind of go over some of the final things. I think there may be a meeting or 2 left just in order to work out some of the details in the future kind of improvements, which are kind of in 2 or 3 tiers. Stuff that we can kind of do within, we'll say, the first couple of years of the plan, and then longer term things that may either be dependent upon funding or depending upon the built environment to kind of come online. So some of the things that we're looking at are some of the services in South Fargo, and that is of course contingent upon the houses actually going up and transit supportive development kind of going in, which some of the planners have indicated, especially along like the Cheyenne corridor, that they're looking at higher density sorts of developments, kind of like I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Deer Creek neighborhood in Fargo down there on 52nd, which is single family, but done to a dense level where you can fit a lot more houses on attractive land. So we are looking to actually have a draft document in our hands either by the end of May or maybe the first week of June. And that kind of brings up another subject. We would like to hold a special MAC coordinating board meeting sometime in June, so that our consultants can give the presentation to this board before we go through the approval process, which would likely be in July. So we want to make sure that this board has a far advance notice of some of the recommendations, and they have time to respond, after we do a cursory review of that plan. So I really like everyone to just kind of think about, and I'll be sending out an email to this in this regard, just to kind of think about on their schedules if there would be some time available in June. We don't necessarily need to hold it during our regular day, which is the third Wednesday of the month. We can hold it at any time that would be convenient to this body. And then the other thing would be whether you would like to meet virtually or in person. And I guess maybe that's a conversation too we can have later, whether these meetings should continue to be virtual or continue to be. That's kind of separate from the TDP discussion. But if there are specific questions about the TDP, I know we've given a presentation kind of at our TTC and our policy board for those on this body that are members of those. And we've kind of met preliminarily with some of the city's council or commissioners and council people to kind of give a brief basis of what our thought process is in looking at the future system in our area. So we've kind of got those routes down, but we really have to work through the financial component right now and look at how we would possibly prioritize those improvements in the future. And of course, that's kind of complicated by the TMA factor. And some of those improvements may need additional funding, which again goes back to that transit authority study that was completed last year. So with that, I will just open up for any questions from this body.
Questions for Michael?
Michael, will you send out a doodle poll or the?
Yes, I will. I was waiting just to make sure that everyone was okay with having a special meeting, and then I'll be sending out a doodle poll today.
Sounds good. All right, thanks for the update. We'll move on to item 3E, the operation reports. Cole and Lori.
Thank you. If I'm able to share my screen here, I believe that the report starts on page 40 of the map board packet PDF. Is everyone able to see it?
No. Oh, now I can.
There goes Cole. Okay, perfect. So starting off with a broad overview of ridership for this year, broken down into month by month. Overall, from January through the end of April, Moorhead has seen a 1% increase in overall ridership. Fargo has seen a 26% decrease. Our paratransit has seen a 12% increase. And overall, we have a total change of 18% decrease. And then in the next slide, I'd like to break down Fargo's ridership just a bit more. So taking a look at this, the Fargo routes that do not include NDSU actually saw only an 8% decrease. So majority of our ridership decrease is due to NDSU routes not seeing nearly as many riders as previous years. Looking at the data from last year, you do see that NDSU did end their semester early. I believe it was middle of March of last year, so we don't have any ridership in either April or May. And then when classes resumed in August, you can see that the ridership was significantly lower than before COVID hit, and that's kind of stayed the trend through this year as well. So then going into route by route ridership, you can see that overall we do generally have a decrease in riders still. With COVID affecting us, we're still seeing just overall decreased ridership. You can see Route 11 is a decrease of 15%, 13 is a decrease of 29%, 13U decrease of 49%, 14 is a decrease of 4%, 15 actually saw an increase of 3%, 16 decrease of 6%, 17 decrease of 6%, 18 decrease of 14%, 20 saw an increase of 2%, 24 decrease of 14%. And then with Link FM, we have not had any events for that service this year. our first event will be coming up in a couple of months here for the downtown street fair. So we can see resuming ridership in July. Overall, our tap ride ridership has decreased in both our industrial park tap ride and the NDSU tap ride services. These are just combined numbers here. Paratransit saw an increase of 4%. And then, like I said before, the NDSU routes, including 31, 32, E and W, 33, 34, and this Route 13 up here, all saw very large decreases in ridership due to more online classes and changes due to COVID-19. Then looking at Moorhead ridership, Route 1 saw a decrease of 10%, Route 2 saw a decrease of 18%, Route 3 saw a pretty sizable increase of 39%, Route 4 had an increase of 4%, Route 5 had an increase of 12%, Route 6 had a decrease of 2%, and Route 9 had a decrease of 4%. And then looking into college ridership, this information is a bit inaccurate due to us not charging fares last year. Students who used the UPass weren't required to use their IDs to ride. So because of that, we don't really have as accurate data as we would like to. With fares resuming on April 1st, students will be using their IDs again. So by the time the next MAT board presentation comes along, we should have better data at that point. And then also to note, the NDSU students boarding on campus, they're manually tallied by drivers. So that differs from other UPass colleges in the fact that students don't have to use their IDs all the time at NDSU. And then some more breakdown for different ridership types from 2020 to 2021. This is kind of the same thing with the fact that we didn't charge fares. A lot of these don't have the most accurate data. You can see that adult is up by 41%, and all these other categories are down due to not being able to get ridership information through our tickets. And then if I could have Lori kind of cover this slide.
Yeah, thank you. So Metro Senior Ride for Moorhead and Dilworth, these are the comparisons from 2020 to 2021. So through March, we didn't have April data at the time we were putting this together. So the number of riders of Moorhead riders was down 22% for the year so far, and Dilworth was down 65%. So we have a decrease of 28%, but we are seeing an increase now that in April as ridership is back. Actually, I got the April ridership the other day, and it's like up over 200%. So, the seniors are coming back onto Senior Ride.
Yeah, so moving on to the next slide. I don't believe that on-time performance has been included in previous MAT board presentations. So just kind of going over what that means for us. We have a 90% on-time performance goal, which basically means that for our fixed route, the bus can be either less than 5 minutes late to the stop or less than 1 minute early to the stop to be considered on time. And that is with our key stops being usually central hubs such as grocery stores, just major destinations for the public is kind of where we track that information. And then for paratransit on-time performance criteria, the way that it works is if a passenger calls in requesting a specific time, the drivers can either be there less than 15 minutes early for that trip or less than 15 minutes late to be considered in that trip's window. So another thing that I would like to preference with this, in 2020, we did see a decrease in ridership in both March and April due to the start of COVID-19. So ironically, with fewer riders, we actually had increased on-time performance. Just fewer stops means that the buses will be able to travel around town faster. So looking at Route 11, we saw a decrease of 4.89% for this year. 13 had 1.5% decrease. 13U had 0.32%. 14 had 2.11%. 15 had 3.86%. 16 had 5.61%, 17 saw an increase of 4.5%. 18 saw an increase of 4.67%. 20 saw a decrease of 7.29%. 20 saw a decrease of 7.29%. 24 saw a decrease of 4.97%. And again, so far this year, we haven't had any Link FM events. Paratransit saw a decrease of 1.55%. And then for the college routes, 31 saw a decrease of 1.14%. 32E saw a decrease of 10.13%. 32W saw a decrease of 5.08%. 33 saw an increase of 5.76%. And 34 saw a decrease of 3.67%. Then looking at the Moorhead routes, they saw an increase.
If I could
Sure.
on the Moorhead ones, Cole, I just want to point out that, the goal is 90%. And as you look across 2021, all of them meet 90% or more, except for Route 3, which is on a major detour for the 21st Street grade separation, and also crossing railroad tracks several times. But we are working on improving that one and hope to have that project done, if not this fall, next year. So hopefully that will improve. But we are changing some of our timetables to match what the bus is really doing in real time, so that our on-time performance is better for the passenger. They have a better idea of when that bus will be going by there. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Go ahead, Cole. Thank you.
Yep. I would also like to mention that our contractors leadership team has been working very hard to improve on-time performance over the last couple of months. They have recognized a few routes that do need improvement, so we will be looking into those as time goes on. So overall, as you can see, Moorhead's ridership is increasing significantly across the board. And if you look, you can see different averages between Fargo, Moorhead, and the system average. So overall, we are just up slightly compared to last year for the system overall. Then going into rides per hour, you see that Moorhead has a 1% increase, Fargo has a 30% decrease, and overall that total is a 21% decrease, again, more so due to those NDSU routes. And looking at paratransit, overall it's a small change of a 3% decrease. And moving into feedback reports, overall I can see the top 6 complaints, number 1 being employee behavior, 2 being unsafe driving, policy issues, behind schedule, ahead of schedule, and off route. Majority of the employee behavior complaints are unsubstantiated. Our contractor has also been very good about going through those and responding to them in a very timely manner. So you can see totals of 45 total employee behavior complaints, 19 unsafe driving, 19 policy issues, 19 behind schedule, 12 ahead of schedule, and 5 off route. And this more or less just summarizes the complaints. And moving into incidents, our largest section of incidents is police and security presence, whether it's on our bus routes or at the ground transportation center. The majority of these are substantiated because we are the ones who usually report those. The reason that this other category is so high is a lot of times it's just for documentation purposes, so that we have that on record. Moving past that, so you have passenger behavior, emergency services, fallen injury, policy issues, and biohazards. Overall, the police and security presence and passenger behavior are our largest incident totals, and it'll drop off from there. And you can see the total substantiated, unsubstantiated, and others over here. And then this just breaks down the total incident categories. Then looking at the other feedback items that we have, we've had 6 compliments for our drivers and staff, 7 total bus stop requests for this year, 0 public hearings, 0 events and policy changes. Then going into missed trips a bit here, we do have some missed trips due to weather. This other category can encompass quite a few different things. A decent amount of trips due to driver error, a few trips due to mechanical errors, Nothing to dispatch error, which that's nice to see. And then a few missed trips due to collisions. And then looking at our collisions for the year, preventable collisions is down significantly compared to 2020. So it's very good to see that the drivers are being trained in that very well. Non-preventable collisions are the same as 2020 up to this point, and insignificant collisions are also down. And I believe that's the end of the presentation.
Questions for Cole or Lori? Okay. No questions. I know there are some articles that were provided in your packet. Does anybody have any questions on the articles for the team? All right, I just had one quick question on construction season. Always comes around this time of the year. Any projects that, you deal with it every year, but anything substantial that you have concerns with, or just kind of a normal construction season coming up?
Yeah, there's a lot of detours going on. Some of them are small and just a few days, and some are long and several weeks. And so we're continuing to post our detours on the website so people know, and send out social media for long-term detours so people know to change their times when they go out to catch the bus. Our hope is that they get completed early because of the nice weather, and when the college students return, that we don't have to deal with a lot of training on detours and then retraining on bus routes that normalize again.
Any other business or questions from the board?
Yeah, maybe if I can too, just speak to the detours. And this is nothing for this year, but this is something that MetroCog is tracking, and I want to make sure that transit is involved in the conversation. As everybody knows, the US 10 corridor is going to be reconstructed in the near future, possibly starting in maybe the 2023 to 2024 timeframe, but maybe as late as 2025. It depends upon state funding. But that will be the entirety of 8th Street, pretty much from where the DDI, the Diverging Diamond interchange on I-29 or on 994 was completed, through downtown out to the east. I believe it terminates at 34th Street. And then there's a later project that would go through Dilworth as well, but that's not as important to MapBus. And then also the possible construction of the 11th Street grade separation would complicate that as well, which would shut down kind of 2 of the 3 through streets, First Avenue, Main Avenue, and Center at a time. And so MetroCog is working on a dynamic travel assignment model, and I would invite MapBus staff to be a part of that process and how we are staging. We're going to provide feedback to MnDOT on how we're staging, where we would like to stage those construction projects to have the best travel opportunities for the public and for transit service. And so that's something that we will be engaging with MapBus here in the near future, kind of as we develop that model with ATAC at NDSU. And so that construction season is likely to last probably 7 years. Just because of the length, as much the total reconstruction of the roadways down to the base. So they want to do a project that would last for at least 30 years, so they don't have to come back. So the city would be probably replacing utilities underneath. So this is a very big project that would really impact Moorhead. And so we just want to make sure that we are planning for that years in advance. So I'll just put that out there.
Thanks, Michael.
Yep.
Any other business? Okay, hearing none, we'll be officially adjourned.
Sorry.
Thanks, everyone.